They were still flooding me with nerve gas through a rubber tube jammed into my nose. Agent Orange was being administered using steel lances thrust into each of my arms, all connected to plastic Ziploc bags hanging from rickety wheeled dollies positioned around the torture table. As I became more lucent, I realized that I was tied down with titanium alloy leather straps, which were probably supplied from extraterrestrials from far beyond the ice wall. I knew extraterrestrials were involved, as I had been probed with another plastic tube which now drained my bladder. The ice wall. The mission. It all started to come back to me. It was morning now, and the tank destroyer NASA hit squad had captured me so that I would miss our 0530 team meeting. My team of natural-born sovereign citizens was now leaderless, no doubt roaming the battlefield in a daze, all suffering from shell shock, battle fatigue, and PTSD. How devious! How cruel! The NASA hit squad had no doubt violated the international rules of war, and I resolved to report them to the Postmaster General at the first opportunity. But then, another insight flashed into my rapidly clearing cranial unit. The image of the CRT television crashing down on me while in the grips of the tank destroyer in the Motel 6 parking lot. I was now restrained in a NASA torture facility and being probed by alien beings from the ice wall. But what happened between the TV falling on my head and now? It was only with superhuman concentration, fighting the effects of nerve gas, that the chain of events began to unfold before me. I awakened after midnight in a landfill. I was lying in a pool of fish guts and rotten onions, with plastic bags and dirt packed in around me. The nerve gas and falling TV had placed me in a coma, and after 18 hours trying to revive me, the NASA hit squad had given up and dumped me in the landfill to die. It almost gave me comfort to know that these war crimes would surely be on the agenda of the next Nuremberg war crimes trials held by the Postmaster General. But there was even more comfort in the situation. That additional comforting thought was that NASA had left me for dead. Therefore, they would no longer be hounding me and my team. I almost laughed in knowing that NASA had outsmarted itself, and that we could continue our journey to the ice wall unhindered by their ceaseless attacks. I dug my way out of the first layer of trash at the landfill, and after an hour of searching, I found the main gate. The main gate led to a muddy road, which was impossible for me to walk on, as I had lost my shoes. I moved into the ditch beside the road, but it was filled with greasy, slimy landfill runoff and lined with thorn bushes and broken glass from the trash trucks. Finally, I lay down on a dry wooden pallet which had been placed across the ditch as a footbridge. That was the last thing I could remember, as apparently the torture and nerve gas again overwhelmed me, and I passed out. Just as I had finished reconstructing the events of the previous night, a white-coated clinician member of the probing facility walked into the room and began to read some papers on a silver-colored clipboard. He looked of human origin, but I'm sure he was at least a shape-shifting reptilian or extraterrestrial mutant. "You had a night of it, didn't you?" remarked the clinician. "I shall not comply," I said firmly. "I do not consent, and I order you to release me, so that I may continue my travels unimpeded, under the authority of the Postmaster General. I wanted to make it clear to this clinical stooge of the New World Order that I was no ordinary captive, and that I knew the intricacies of common law." "Boy," replied the clinical stooge, "the police had it right. They said you were delusional, even mumbling about the CIA interfering with your journey to the ends of the earth or something. My name is Dr. Clayton, by the way. I'm your primary care physician until the sheriff releases you." "I do not consent." I again made it clear. "Well, Mr. Doe," replied the so-called Dr. Clayton, "you are delusional, in shock, and suffering from both dehydration and starvation. Until we have your name and bring your vitals up, the sheriff has installed you as a guest here." The clinician left the room, but a few minutes later, a member of the local sheriff's office, who were in collusion with the NASA attack unit, entered the room. "Good morning," said the officer. "I'm Officer Mike Branson of the Mitchell County Sheriff's Office. One of the workers at the landfill found you lying in a ditch last night at about 3 a.m. You were delusional, incoherent, and kept insisting that you were fighting space creatures and going to the edge of the earth." Officer Branson then laughed a little and wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Of course, I refused to give my name, and I continued to explain my status as a sovereign citizen. My plans to travel to the ice wall were also not the business of the Mitchell County Sheriff's Office. Furthermore, I was angered that my clear insights and broad knowledge of science would be judged delusional by Hick County Mounties from the backwoods of Mitchell County. At noon, the clinicians released my left arm so I could eat, but when I refused to allow them to restrain the arm after lunch, I was again injected with nerve agent, which rendered me unconscious. I was awakened by a pounding and crashing noise coming from the bathroom of my torture chamber room. Clearing my eyes of sleep, I looked to the left to see the image of Larry Berry standing next to my torture rack. "Larry," I mumbled, "how'd you break into a NASA torture facility?" "It's not a NASA torture facility," replied Larry. "It's just the Mitchell County Hospital." Larry released me from the holding straps and pulled out all the tubes connected to my body. "How'd you find me?" I asked. "No time to talk," replied Larry. "We have a finely tuned, meticulously timed escape planned." Larry dragged me over to the bathroom and pushed me through a hole the team had chopped in the wall. They had apparently hit a pipe, as water was spraying out everywhere. On the other side of the wall were Tripper and Ranger Dan with an old Army-type stretcher, which they unceremoniously tied me to. They took me across the hall, where they had punched another hole, from which they lowered me into an elevator shaft that took us all to the basement. In the basement, we climbed into a heating duct, and sliding down 100 feet or more, we arrived in a utility room. From the utility room, we took a service elevator to the roof, where Jake Dobbs was waiting with a helicopter and a helicopter pilot. As they tied me to the helicopter landing gear, I could hear police sirens in the background and Jake yelling at everyone. "Hold on," bellowed Jake. "This thing isn't designed to carry this much weight, and we are probably all toast." I felt the blast of the rotors and could see the ground coming up to meet us as we went over the edge of the flat hospital roof. The helicopter didn't have enough power to fly us away, but apparently that wasn't the plan. The pilot set the chopper down in the parking lot next to Larry's truck. They put me and my stretcher in the bed of the truck, and the team climbed into the truck. Larry sped away in the truck, and the pilot flew away in the helicopter. "Why didn't you just bring me out the main entrance?" I asked Tripper as we bounced away in the truck. "It would not have been strategic," answered Tripper with a puzzled look on his face. "You gotta see the big picture."